What happens when Hollywood's most beloved underdog faces television's most relentless interrogator? The result? Raised voices, a near walk-off, and one of the most explosive moments ever aired on live morning television. But before we dive into that unforgettable clash, make sure to hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What do you think really caused this on-air meltdown? The Good Morning America studio buzzed with its usual pre-show rhythm. Crew members adjusted cameras and lights as Sylvester Stallone sat calmly in the guest chair, dressed sharply in a navy blue suit. He glanced over his notes, details about his latest directorial project, a film he'd been nurturing for more than a decade. It was supposed to be a straightforward press stop. Instead, it would become television history. George Stephanopoulos entered the set with his trademark calm professionalism. Those who knew his style understood the danger behind that disarming smile. George never missed a chance to dig deeper than his guests expected. "Good morning," he began, as the cameras rolled live across America. "I'm George Stephanopoulos, and we're here with Academy Award nominee Sylvester Stallone. Sly, thanks for being here. Thanks for having me, George. Always a pleasure," Stallone replied in that unmistakable gravelly voice, flashing the smile that had charmed audiences for decades. Then, George made his move. "Now you're here to talk about your new film," he said, "but I want to start with something else." Instantly, Stallone's smile faded. This wasn't part of the agreed talking points. "You've been quite vocal about certain political issues lately," George continued. "Some critics say you've been using your platform irresponsibly. How do you respond to that?" Stallone shifted slightly in his chair. "Well, George, I'm here to talk about my film, which I think your viewers would rather hear about. It's a story I've been passionate about for years. But surely," Stephanopoulos pressed, "you understand that when you make public statements, they become fair game. You can't pick and choose when to be a public figure." The tension thickened. Stallone's instinct told him to stay diplomatic, but his pride told him to fight back. "With respect," Stallone said evenly, "I came here to discuss my work as a filmmaker. That's what we agreed on." "Our audience is quite sophisticated," George countered, voice tightening. "They can handle both, and your art and your public statements. Unless, of course, you're not comfortable defending them." There it was, the challenge. If Stallone deflected, he'd look evasive. If he engaged, he'd be dragged into the political crossfire he'd tried to avoid. "I'm comfortable with my positions," Stallone said, his tone hardening. "What I'm not comfortable with is being ambushed on a show where I was told we'd be talking about my film. This feels like a bait and switch." "Ambushed?" Stephanopoulos echoed. "I'm asking about statements you made. If you consider that an ambush, maybe you should rethink making those statements in the first place." The condescension was unmistakable now. Stallone's jaw tightened. "You know what, George? I've been doing interviews for over 40 years. I know the difference between journalism and gotcha television. Right now, this feels a lot more like the latter." George gave a mirthless laugh. "If legitimate questions make you uncomfortable, maybe you should examine why." "What makes me uncomfortable?" Stallone shot back, voice rising. "Is sitting here trying to promote a film that means everything to me while you try to score political points. This isn't journalism, George. It's performance art." The control room erupted into chaos. Producers debated whether to cut to commercial, but no one dared interrupt what was unfolding. "Performance art," George repeated with a cold smile. "That's rich, coming from someone whose entire career is built on performance." "I'm not hiding behind anything," Stallone growled. "I'm talking about human struggles and real stories that matter. But you seem more interested in political theater." "Politics is about human struggles," Stephanopoulos shot back. "Your words have consequences. Don't you think you have a responsibility to address that?" "My responsibility," Stallone said, leaning forward, "is to my craft, to the stories I tell, to the people who support my work. Not to your need for controversy." The studio went dead silent. Every camera stayed locked on the two men. "You made the controversy," Stephanopoulos snapped. "I'm just asking you to own it." "What I own," Stallone said, voice heavy with frustration, "is 40 years of work that's inspired people. What I don't own is your agenda. And I won't pretend this ambush is legitimate journalism." That word, ambush, hung in the air like a grenade. "Ambush, Sly?" "Really?" Stephanopoulos said, now visibly irritated. "You sound like another celebrity playing the victim." Stallone's hands balled into fists. Victim, I came here in good faith. You turned this into a political inquisition. That's not accountability, and that's bullying with a press badge. Bullying? George fired back. I'm asking direct questions about your own words. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you should just stick to punching things on camera. The insult landed hard. Stallone leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. Punching things on camera, huh? I can tell you about that. About 18-hour days, about fighting for every role, every script. What I won't do is let some smug network pretty boy reduce my life's work to a punchline. Pretty boy, George shot back. When you can't defend yourself, you go personal. Very telling. No, what's telling, Stallone countered, is that you dismissed 40 years of my career and called it journalism. I'm doing my job, George said icily. If you can't take it, maybe you're not as tough as your movie characters. Stallone half rose from his chair. My movie characters have more integrity in their fingernails than you've shown in this entire interview. Rocky Balboa would never sucker punch someone the way you just did. Sucker punch? George nearly shouted. I'm holding you accountable. Accountable? Stallone's voice boomed. You're trying to create a viral moment at my expense. I'm not here to be your entertainment. By now, phones were out. The audience was filming. The producers couldn't look away. You think I need a viral moment? Stephanopoulos snapped. I've been doing this long before viral was even a word. The controversy is all yours, Sly. Then congratulations, Stallone said coldly. You just got your headline. Here's a rewritten and tightened version of your passage, keeping the dramatic intensity and cinematic pacing, but with smoother flow, sharper dialogue, and more natural narrative rhythm. Let me tell you something about scrutiny. George and I've been picked apart by critics, audiences, studio executives, by anyone who ever had an opinion about my work. But at least they were honest about what they were doing. You, on the other hand, are hiding behind the mask of journalism while trying to tear me down for sport. Tear you down for sport? Stephanopoulos shot back, rising from his chair, something he almost never did during an interview. I'm asking you to defend statements you made. If that feels like being torn down, maybe you should take a closer look at those statements. Maybe you should take a closer look at your motives, Stallone barked, also standing. Because this isn't about my statements, George. This is about you trying to make yourself look important by taking down someone who's actually accomplished something. The two men stood face to face, their voices echoing through the studio, as decades of professional decorum crumbled in real time. Cameras kept rolling, capturing every angry gesture, every flushed face, every second of what was quickly becoming the most explosive confrontation in morning television history. Accomplished something? Stephanopoulos' voice cracked with outrage. I've been a journalist for decades. I've covered presidents. I've broken major stories. I've held powerful people accountable. Don't you dare lecture me about accomplishment. Then act like it. Stallone roared. Act like the professional you claim to be, not some tabloid ambush artist. Show some respect for the process, for your audience, for basic human decency. In the control room, a frantic decision was made. Cut to commercial. But not before millions of viewers watched the two men shouting across the set, their professional masks shattered, their anger raw and unfiltered. When Good Morning America returned, the tension in the studio was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. Both men had retaken their seats, but neither looked calm. Their anger had only simmered, then concentrated. Stephanopoulos straightened his tie, forced a brittle smile, and turned to the camera. Welcome back to Good Morning America. I'm here with Sylvester Stallone, and we've been having a very spirited discussion about accountability and public discourse. Spirited discussion? Stallone interrupted, incredulous. Is that what you call this? A character assassination? Character assassination? Stephanopoulos shot back, now visibly irritated. You're the one who brought up personal attacks, not me. I'm just asking you to engage with your own words instead of hiding behind wounded pride. Wounded pride? Stallone leaned forward. George, the only thing wounded here is my faith in professional journalism. You've spent this entire interview trying to bait me into a political fight instead of doing your job. My job, Stephanopoulos said with icy emphasis, is to ask the questions that matter, not to give you free advertising for your latest movie. If you wanted a commercial, you should have bought airtime. That line changed everything. Stallone's expression hardened. His posture straightened. His eyes, those same eyes that made Rocky Balboa a symbol of perseverance, narrowed. You know what, George? You're right. This isn't a commercial. It's supposed to be an interview between professionals, but since you've made it clear professionalism isn't on the table, let me say this clearly. Please enlighten us, Stephanopoulos said, his tone dripping with condescension. I've made movies that inspired millions around the world, Stallone began, his voice gathering strength. I've created characters that represent hope, perseverance, the belief that anyone can rise above their circumstances. I've spent decades telling stories that uplift people. Oh, so now you're giving motivational speeches? Stephanopoulos interrupted, smirking. No, Stallone shot back undeterred. I'm asking you what you've built. What have you created? What have you left behind besides a trail of gotcha moments and self-congratulation? Stephanopoulos flushed red. How dare you question my contributions? I've exposed corruption, informed the public, held presidents accountable. Have you? Stallone interrupted. Or have you just made a career out of being adversarial for its own sake? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're more interested in being famous than being informative. That's rich, Stephanopoulos snapped. Coming from someone whose idea of acting is grunting and throwing punches, the studio fell dead silent. Stallone didn't move, didn't even blink. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, cold, and steady. You know what, George? I tried to be respectful. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. But you've made it clear respect doesn't go both ways. Respect is earned, Stephanopoulos shot back. And you haven't earned anything today except a reputation for not being able to handle tough questions. Tough questions? Stallone stood up slowly. George, I've faced real journalists, people who actually cared about the truth. What you're doing isn't tough questioning. It's cheap grandstanding. Sit down, Sly, Stephanopoulos ordered. We're not done. Stallone looked down at him with pity. Yeah, George, we are done. Because this isn't a conversation anymore. It's a spectacle, and I'm not your circus act. You can't just walk away, Stephanopoulos said, his voice rising in panic. You came here willingly. I came here for an interview, Stallone interrupted, unclipping his mic. Not to be your punching bag. Not to feed your ego. Not to be insulted on national television. If you walk off this set, Stephanopoulos warned, everyone will know you couldn't handle the pressure. Stallone paused, looked directly into the camera and said quietly, then let them know. Let them know that Sylvester Stallone chose dignity over drama. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to fight when someone's trying to provoke you for all the wrong reasons. Stephanopoulos sputtered, this is incredibly unprofessional. Unprofessional? Stallone laughed dryly. George, ambushing a guest is unprofessional. Turning a promo into an attack is unprofessional. Prioritizing your ego over your audience, that's unprofessional. He dropped the mic on his chair and began walking off set. Running away won't change the fact that you couldn't answer my questions. Stephanopoulos shouted after him. Stallone stopped at the edge of the stage, turned and said, George, I could answer every question you've got, and 100 more, but I won't do it for someone who's already decided what story he wants to tell. He nodded toward the camera. Good luck with the rest of your show. And with that, Sylvester Stallone walked off the Good Morning America set, leaving George Stephanopoulos staring into the camera, visibly shaken. The cameras stayed rolling, but the damage was done. In under 20 minutes, a routine celebrity interview had devolved into one of the most infamous moments in morning television history. A raw, unscripted clash between ego and principle. Viewers across the country debated who was to blame. Was Stephanopoulos too aggressive, or was Stallone too thin-skinned? Whatever the answer, one thing was certain. Live television had never felt more alive.